Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Everyone welcome. Surah Yusuf, which is chapter 12, verses 1 to 7. This is a detailed explanation in English. So what I intend doing is that since this chapter has been covered in our recently published book, The Meanings of the Quran, Volume 7, so I thought I'll go through it with you and we will look at various aspects which are covered in the book as well as something over and above which is not covered in the book. Now, these are the references which I've noted here, and you can always go back and look at the basics. And this is our WhatsApp contact number for those who are going to watch it at their own, and they are welcome to put their questions or any queries through this WhatsApp number. General points for guidance. As a mark of respect, please assume the prefix of Hazrat that is used to recognize eminence before the name of every messenger of Allah, and the suffix of Salam be upon him, that is peace be upon him. This is the tradition which goes on in Asian subcontinent. So instead of saying Hazrat with every messenger whose name is taken during the presentation, I thought that I'll let everyone know that it should be assumed that it has been said, because then it will make it simple, because this presentation is for English-speaking audience and the aim is to keep it simple. What is covered in today's presentation is based on the interpretations of the verses of Surah Yusuf by Allama Parwez and their further elaboration in terms of their application in today's world. Since the Quranic guidance is for all times, we need to continually reflect on its message to obtain the best and most balanced aspects before us for application in our individual and collective lives in the era in which we live. So if instead of reading this surah as something which happened a few thousand years ago, we should look at it that what is its application as of today and how does it impact our day-to-day life and the education and training of our children. Please note that the permanent values of the Quran do not change with time and are immutable, i.e. they will remain the same for the first man and the last man on planet Earth. Deen of Islam as a complete system of life has been completed and is preserved within the Quran. So we should keep it in mind. There will be some values which I have highlighted later on, which come out of the Surah Yusuf, and more will come out as we will progress through it. Outline of the presentation: first, a brief introduction, verses 1 to 3, and then Yusuf as a Nabi and Rasool, verse 12, 4, some explanation of dreams, then verses 5 to 6 will be covered, including the state of Yusuf's or Yaqub's family, then verse 7, and that needs further reflection. Some values covered in this surah, guidance for the youth, some aspects of Quranic guidance, brief introduction. Now, I have taken this introduction from the book, that is volume 7. Ibrahim came to the area of Canaan, which was Palestine, after migrating from Maluf, which was in Iraq, and that was his place of abode, where he was brought up. Then he migrated over to Canaan. And you can read through this background, further details in Wikipedia. There he established a state which prevailed during the time of progeny of Ibrahim. His younger son Ishaq remained as the guardian of this state, but his elder son Ismail was put in position in Ejaz, where the intensely demanding service of the supervision of the Kaaba was placed in his hands. If some of us know about it, that he had two sons, one was Ishaq, one was Ismail, and Ismail got established where now we find Mecca. Yaqub, the son of Ishaq, also remained in Canaan, but it appears that the state had shrunk in their time and had become confined to the leadership of a tribe only. So it looks like that Yaqub had a narrow responsibility over his tribe. And if we remember that barring Egypt, the surrounding areas were very tribal at that time. There is no detailed description given in the Quran about Ishaq and Yaqub. They have only been included among the category of the Anbiya. And these are the verses, we can look at them. Yusuf, whose illuminating and eminent story becomes the cause for the adornment of these pages, was the son of Yaqub. So this chapter is exclusively devoted to Yusuf and how he, from a tribal background, went up and rose through because of his eminence and got power. In connection with the story of Yusuf, two aspects appear prominently before us. First is the story of Yusuf is narrated continuously in just one surah. The details of other Anbiya are dispersed like scattered pearls in different places in the Quran. So this is very particularly confined to Yusuf. The story is not an account of any kind of clash or revolution, unlike the accounts of other messengers. In the case of other messengers, if we go through it, for example, Musa, last messenger of Allah, they went through a number of clashes and went through a lot of upheavals. But in the case of Yusuf, there is no clash or revolution involved. It is the manifestation of this reality that by lifting from an abode of dust, how the personal potential of an individual, the eminence of his character, the virtue of his personality take him to the loftiest heights of the status and responsibility of being human, though it is not an easy path. Now, for further details, you can always look at this reference. Now, let us look at the verses 1 to 3 first. Alif Lam Ra Tilka Ayatul Kitabil Mubin Inna Anzalnahu Quranan Arabiyyan La'allakum Taqilun Nahnu Naqussu Alayka Ahsanal Qasasi Bima Awhayna Ilayka Hazal Qurana Wa In Kunta Min Qablihi La Minal Ghafilin. This is how the surah starts in the Quran. This is a declaration of Allah, Aleem and Rahim, that this is a book of a clear code of laws. We have made this Quran clear and perspicuous so that you can make full use of understanding and reasoning, so that you learn how to use your intellect, i.e. the aim of sending down the Quran is to fire up human intellect. O Rasool, by revealing this Quran on you through Wahi, we narrate the accounts of previous Anbiya and past nations through you in the best way. There are those accounts of which you were not aware before the revelation of the Quran. In these is also the story of Yusuf, which is narrated now. Now, this is a meaning rather than the translation, and this is what is taken out of the book. Now, the use of intellect and emotions needs examples from real life to see their application. By calling these accounts as ahsan, Allah has drawn our attention to look for the best possible interpretation by using our desire, intellect, and emotive drive. The term used here is al-ghafilin, and what is normally translated is that something you did not know. But there is a point over here. It points to this fact that what is being noted here is not available anywhere. Yusuf and his brother's stories is given in Bible as well, and also all our tafasirs have covered it. But that is not the point. We will go, as we will progress through it, we will realize there is far more to it than merely a story. It had a cover on it as a fact, now being uncovered. So what Quran is saying is that there are points over here which you will not find in the stories which are noted elsewhere. Hence, not to be read as a tale, it has great significance in relation to Deen. Yusuf was Nabi and Rasool, and its significance. Now, I have quoted here two verses. Wa wahabna lahu ishaqa wa yaquba kullan hadaina wa nuhan hadaina min qablu wa min zurriyatihi Dauda wa Sulaymana wa Ayyuba wa Yusufa wa Musa wa Haruna wa kazalika najzil muhsinin. We gave him Ishaq and Yaqub. All three we guided, and before him we guided Nuh, and among his progeny Daud, Suleiman, Yunus, Yusuf, Musa, and Harun. Thus do we reward those who are muhsinin. So in a way, one can say that getting wahi in itself is a reward, and then of course following it, one becomes a muhsin. وَلَقَدْ جَاءَكُمْ يُوسُفُ مِنْ قَبْلُ بِالْبَيِّنَاتِ فَمَا زِلْتُمْ فِي شَكٍّ مِمَّا جَاءَكُمْ بِهِ حَتَّى إِذَا هَلَكَ قُلْتُمْ لَنْ يَبْعَثَ اللَّهُ مِنْ بَعْدِهِ رَسُولًا كَذَلِكَ يُضِلُّ اللَّهُ مَنْ هُوَ مُسْرِفٌ مُرْتَابٌ. Now, this is the statement made by a mu'min in the court of Pharaoh in Surah 40. And it's worth looking at it because it's a quite long statement made by him. And to you there came, and he says, and to you there came Yusuf in times gone by. Now he is referring to the past, that Yusuf did come to you before the time of this Pharaoh and the time of Moses. with clear signs, but you cease not to doubt for which he had come. So what happens is that after a period of time, people forget about wahi and they divert from the path of Sirat-e-Mustaqim, whoever were following it. And as a result, people forget it. And over here, what he's saying is that you are still doubting that whether another messenger will come or not. At length, when he died, you said, no messenger will Allah send after him. Thus does Allah leave to stray such as transgress and live in doubt. So what Quran is saying is that Allah's wahi is always present into every people, and it is up to people to follow it. And if people start making excuses and they don't want to follow it, then it is their choice. And as a result, they suffer. So this is what the moment over here is telling and making clear to the people sitting in the court of Pharaoh. Allah has made it clear beyond any doubt that these Anbiya and messengers are part of the creative program of Allah. So that is something we should keep it in mind, that this wahi, this process of wahi is a part of the creative program of Allah. It is not something that we can just reject and have no consequences of rejecting it, of which man takes the central stage by being possessor of choice and intent. Just reflect on the mention of only Muhsineen among the progeny of Nuh and Ibrahim. And this point will become further clear that wherever Quran says that we do not waste the reward or the recompense of Muhsineen, because that is the whole purpose, that we need to become Mu'min, Muttaqi, Muhsineen, Salihin. The addressee of the Quran and Allah are those who have Iman and do Salih deeds. Now, there is over here, what I've done is I've taken from the book, because I thought this is very important, what is stated over there and explained in detail. In verse 2, it is stated, Inna anzalnahu Quranan Arabiyyan, that the style of expression of the Quran is very clear, pure, and well balanced. And that is the meaning of Arabian. Of course, Arabian also means Arabic language, but over here, Arabian is used to explain that Quran is clear, pure, and well balanced. There is no crookedness in it. That is, there is nothing hidden within it. It's not a convoluted message that it says one thing and means something else. No kind of ambiguity in it. This then is the characteristic of the style of expression of the Quran. So we should keep that in mind as we will go through these verses. After this comes the second statement, or the other two terms, la'allakum taqilun, so that you start using your intellect, so that this intellect which Allah has given to you, you should use it and then make it clear to yourself, which is translated as so that you are able to understand, or you have understood. The meaning of this will be that the style of expression of the Quran is not such that it becomes understood automatically, that the student of the Quran will not need to do anything himself. And that is a very important point, because some people think that just merely reading through the translation, they will get the gist of it. But Quran, contrary to that, is asking for very intense reflection on our part. If there is, for example, if there is light outside, then for the one wishing to see, he needs to do no more than keep his eyes open. After this, everything becomes visible automatically. For example, if we go outside from the dark, then we can see the things clearly because of sunshine. And we don't have to use our intellect, just we have to use our eyes. This meaning of la'allakum taqilun is against the reality and wish of the Quran. This is not what Quran is asking us to do. The Quran does not become understood automatically by itself. For this, something has to be enacted. And the Quran has concisely condensed this reality in one word, taqilun. It is a verb of action, and action demands this element that the actor should perform that task. So once we are going through the Quran, we should see that whether we are acting or not, whether we are using our intellect or not, and this point will become clearer later on. The meaning of la'allakum taqilun can be expressed in these kind of words, so that you can make use of intellect. And the word for intellect is aql. Taqilun has aql as a root, so that you can bring your intellect into use. For example, see this verse. Laqad anzalna alaykum kitaban fihi zikrukum afala taqilun, that surely we have sent this book on you, in which is your own zikr. That is, your own eminence and loftiness lies in this Quran, and that is addressed to all mankind. Afala taqilun, and you can understand this if you use your intellect. And that is the point made over here. Now, continuing on the use of intellect. Now, I've quoted a verse here, وَمَثَلُ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا كَمَثَلِ الَّذِي يَنْعِقُ بِمَا لَا يَسْمَعُ إِلَّا دُعَاءً وَنِدَاءً صُمٌّ بُكْمٌ أُمْيٌ فَهُمْ لَا يَعْقِلُونَ. The parable of those who do kufr, that is, they reject the message of the Quran or the revelation, is as if one were to shout like a goat herd to things that listen to nothing but calls and cries. Deaf, dumb, and blind, they do not have intellect. And over here, rather than saying they do not have intellect, is that they are not using their akal, they are not using intellect, that what is being said to them, they need to pause, reflect, and then try to understand it. This means that according to the Quran, akal is a potential which does not begin to function automatically by itself. Only if it is put to use does it then play its role. If it is not utilized, then it remains unused. The Quran has called this potential qalb, where it states, أَفَلَمْ يَسِيرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ فَتَكُونَ لَهُمْ قُلُوبٌ يَعْقِلُونَ بِهَا أَوْ آذَانٌ يَسْمَعُونَ بِهَا فَإِنَّهَا لَا تَعْمَى الْأَبْصَارُ وَلَكِنْ تَعْمَى الْقُلُوبُ الَّتِي فِي الصُّدُورِ. Very powerful verse. Do they not travel through the earth so that their hearts may thus learn wisdom and their ears may thus learn to hear? So travel around and gain as much information as possible about the world in which they are living so that their hearts start thinking. Truly, it is not their eyes which are blind, but their hearts within their chest. So Quran is now appealing to our intellect, our emotions, our desires, and the whole set of qalb and fad. That is, those abilities which make us human, through which we use our choice and intent. From this, the Quran has informed us that in order to benefit from its contents, it is necessary that a hunger should arise in the human heart to reach the truth. And this hunger cannot arise unless we think about it, unless we say, no, I'm going to look into it and see what is there in it for me. The potential of the intellect will be awakened by this, and the Quranic meanings will become comprehensible. So merely reading the Quran without intense reflection will not benefit anyone. This is the reason that the Quran has repeatedly drawn attention to acquiring Iman, as this is where we create a desire and a need for the guidance of the Quran, and our intellect and heart then become intensely inclined towards it. Application in the life of Rasulullah. Now, this is very interesting because when I was going through this, I said, because Surah Yusuf, at the beginning, Allah says that it is for you and it is going to point to you those areas of your life which you are not aware of it and how you're going to use it. And this is a great verse in which we can see how he is using it. Illa tansuruhu faqad nasarahullahu is akhrajahul lazina kafaru sani asnane is huma fil ghare is yaqulu li sahibihi la tahzan innallaha mana. I have highlighted this point. Fanzalallahu sakinatahu. Again, this point is highlighted here, sakinatahu. Alayhi wa ayyadahu bi junudin lam tarawha wa ja'ala kalimatul lazina kafaru sufla. وَقَالِمَاتُ hiyal ulya wallahu azizun hakeem. As we know that when wahi comes to the messengers, they have a specific program to act on it. And that also means that we also have a specific program as given in the Quran. And Quran explains it to us that once we follow it, then things start becoming clearer to us. If you, that is now it is addressing the Jamaat-e-Mu'mineen, help not your leader, that is Rasulullah, it is no matter. So Quran is pointing over here that my schemes, that is Allah's schemes, are going to take their effect, whether you like it or don't like it, whether you support him or not. Just keep it in mind, this is the state of Yusuf as well. For Allah did indeed help him when Kuffar drove him out. He had no more than one companion. The two were in the cave, and he said to his companion, just imagine how much fear is there now in that cave. But Rasulullah tells his companion, have no fear, for Allah is with us. And once we go to the next part of Surah Yusuf, we will see that Yusuf has similar situation where he's put into a blind well and Allah sends him the wahi, and he is very calm. And if we see throughout Surah Yusuf, he remains very calm even in the worst of circumstances. And this was something which Rasulullah picked up. Then Allah sent down his peace upon him and strengthened him with forces which you saw not, and humbled to the depths the word of the kuffar, but the word of Allah is exalted to the heights, for Allah is Aziz and Hakeem. We covered this aspect under Aziz as well, the attribute of Aziz. Now, what is in it for us? And that is the point we have to keep it in mind, that how do we apply it in our life so that we also say, La tahzan inna Allah ma'ana. We don't have to have grief because Allah is with us. And that comes by becoming Aziz and Hakeem. This verse is quoted in relation to the revelation of Surah Yusuf to the Jamaat-e-Mu'mineen for all times to illustrate the importance of becoming part of Allah's program in the human world. And through Rasulullah and through these verses and this surah, and of course other surahs, then Jamaat-e-Mu'mineen at that time, they consolidated their own position. They acquired power. They became Aziz and Hakeem. More on this when we progress further along the path of Yusuf as he gets nearer to his aim of becoming Aziz. The issue of human dreams and their significance. Now, over here, I've quoted the next verse. Is Qala Yusufu li abihi ya abati inni ra'aytu ahada ashara kawkaban wa shamsa wal qamara ra'aytuhum li sajidin. This is the famous dream, the first one, which is stated by Yusuf to his father. Behold, Yusuf said to his father, Yaqub, that I have seen in my dream that there are 11 stars and the sun and the moon, and these are prostrated before me. Now, what I've done is on page, I think around 86, 87 in the book, that is volume 7, there is a detail covered by Allama Parwez on dreams. And what I've done is I've taken gist out of it because I thought it is better to share it at this stage, that what is the state of human dreams. According to this discipline, apart from a conscious mind, man also has an unconscious mind. There are many occurrences and details in human life which the conscious mind remembers for a while, but after that either completely forgets these occurrences or removes the imprints of their particular perceptions and impressions from its slate. But the unconscious mind retains the important parts of these incidents and the particular perceptions resulting from them firmly within its domain. The unconscious mind gets a far greater opportunity for its action at that time when man is asleep. This point has been brought before us previously as well through some of the talks given by Dr. Hamid, that we have a subconscious and unconscious part of our consciousness. That is the way our brain works. And in that, over here is that whatever we are doing during the daytime and our inner desires, they start forming our unconscious side of the mind. The unconscious mind gets a far greater opportunity for its action at that time when man is asleep. During this time, the activity of the conscious mind is suspended. In sleep, we know our consciousness is suspended, and there is no kind of disturbance or turmoil in the physical body. That is why the semi-conscious or unconscious mind opens up the album of its magic and then presents different scenes of forgotten tales on the screen of the mind. There is no mutual coordination or order in the perceptions or pieces of events which the semi or unconscious mind presents. The film presented by it is a bizarre assembly of disorder, though sometimes certain pieces appear which are quite orderly. This is what is known as dream. So dreams, some dreams are very lucid, very clear. We know exactly what dream was, but most of the dreams are very blurred, not very clear. And those are just the aberrations of our thoughts during the daytime. Experts in psychoanalysis search for secrets hidden within the layers of the semi or unconscious mind in these disjointed pieces of dreams. So there is a now science developed within psychology, and they carry out some kind of analysis by listening to people who dream. And of course, they have to take into account whole of their life. They analyze the flow of thoughts of the dreamer and the state of his mind, and through this, reach some important conclusions. But all this is conjecture. Even they cannot assess anything with certainty. There is more work done on this side, and if anyone is interested, they should watch some videos on YouTube. Now, next, continuing the same, whatever has appeared before us according to scientific research is only this, that according to this analysis, dreams are the echoes from the past of the lost thoughts and concepts and buried longings and desires of man himself. So some of the dreams, they represent what we have been thinking during the daytime, and also our desires which are not accomplished, or the desires which we want to achieve. So all those come as a mixture of our thoughts during our dreams. These do not have any connection with any other word. Therefore, whatever the kinds of thoughts and beliefs, the word of dreams will be of the same kind. The dreams of those people whose thoughts and beliefs, desires and aims are free from contamination will also be like a mirror. In terms of their purification and eminence, the thoughts and concepts of the Anbiya used to be at the highest level of human attainment. Hence, just like the word of their hearts and visions, so were their dreams. So it is directly proportional to what kind of a thoughts we have and what sort of a character we have and what sort of a education, training and other things we have. So a lot depends on that. But putting some kind of a foundation or some kind of a structure on a dream is not correct. So that is the point being made over here. It is obvious that these kinds of interpretations are purely conjectural and presumptive. And there is no difference between a Nabi and a non-Nabi in these, because whatever even a Nabi says in this regard will be based on his personal judgment as a human being and will not be based on Wahi. With this introduction in mind, contemplate the dreams in the story of Yusuf. The first dream by Yusuf himself, even though it was around the period of his childhood, being the bright offspring of Nubuwwat and also due to become a Nabi himself, his dream was therefore also a reflection of these lofty thoughts, the abode of which were his heart and mind. So Yusuf was thinking on those lines and was benefited by the wahi which his father had, and whatever the value system at that time they had, he benefited from that. Unlike his brothers who did not listen to their father, but Yusuf was prepared to listen and then reflect into it. The sun and the moon and the bright stars in prostration. This was the dream, and Yaqub, who could see the high stature of his son, brightly visible in his character, was the one to give its interpretation. So it is the dream, the way dream is given in this verse, it looks as if it suddenly appeared. No, it did not. There was a whole lot of his character before he dreamt about it. So that is, we should keep it in mind. This dream represents the determination and intense motivation of Yusuf not to accept the conflict-ridden environment of his family. So over here, 11 stars could be a reflection about his brothers, that they are bowing before him. And the sun and moon could be taken as parents, but it could be in a wider context that he was able to bring other forces under his control and benefit from that. So we can imagine about it, and there is no harm to think through it on a wider aspects. And to think outside the box, some guidance of Allah's wahi must have been provided to him, which he understood and determined to act on. This should be our dream too. So the point over here for us is that we should also have this dream, though it was his dream given in the Quran, but it also asks us to dream high and try to see the world we have around us and how to get power and try to solve these issues. The state of the family. Now, over here, I have quoted the next two verses. Qala ya bunayya la taqsus ruyaka ala ikhwatika fayakidu laka kaidan inna shaytana lil insani aduwwun mubin. Hearing the dream of the son, when father heard the dream of Yusuf, the father told him not to relate this dream to his brothers who were half brothers. Otherwise, they will begin plotting some secret scheme against you. Very interesting. If we look into it, and I put down some thoughts on that, the truth is that by creating dissension among human beings, shaitan, that is the emotions of jealousy and prejudice, turns brother against brother. And we experience this in various families around us. وَكَذَلِكَ يَجْتَبِيكَ رَبُّكَ وَيُعَلِّمُكَ مِنْ تَأْوِيلِ الْأَحَادِيثِ وَيُتِمُّ نعمته عليك وعلى آل يعقوب كما أتمها على أبويك من قبل إبراهيم وإسحاق إن ربك عليم حكيم. The father continued from the previous verse and said, from the signs I see in you of realizable potentials, it appears to me that your Rabb will select you for some great purpose and will bestow on you such wisdom and vision so that your insight could reach the root cause of matters very quickly. And Tawilul Ahadith, I have given it slightly more thought, and we'll look at it in another slide. He will shower you with bounties, and through you will complete his favors on the family of Yaqub, just as he did before this on your forefathers. So now father brings in his past, his forefathers, and say, as they benefited being Mohsinin, so you will also benefit as a Mohsin. completed his favors on Ibrahim and Ishaq. Surely your Rabb is aware of every affair and his decisions are based on hikmah, that is wisdom. Now, let us look at what Tawilul Ahadith means over here, which is interpretation of events to know the reality of human life using the permanent values. So I've taken it that this Tawilul Ahadith is in the light of the Quran, the permanent values of the Quran. The first point is we come across events and incidents in our life at the individual as well as the collective level. These need some interpretation for their consequences in the present and the future, that is short-term and the long-term basis, including the life of the hereafter. Yusuf is noted here as going to acquire this potential at some point in the future. His dream points to the acquisition of this attribute. So Yusuf was thinking on this, that what is going on around the world in which he was living, within his family and of course in the tribe. As we have already seen, the Quran places intense emphasis on the use of intellect to increase the horizon of the intellect's understanding through reasoning based on evidence and critical thinking to make decisions in life which benefit human life. When it states that what is good for mankind remains on earth, as given in this verse, it does not mean that we should wait for this to take place on an evolutionary pace. It wishes us to make efforts to ensure that good ensues from human endeavors as quickly as possible, ideally within one generation. The next point is, in the light of the working of the law of requital, we need to learn to see the trend of events in the world as well as in our own life. So we shouldn't look at the world as dead people, that it doesn't bother me, I'm non-political, I'm not concerned about it. If we are Quranic people, then we have to bring our intellect to the highest level of its perception and trying to use it to get to know the world around us. For visualizing a trend in the direction of the world in which we live, we need to become Aleem. We have covered this Aleem before. That is, acquire knowledge and be aware of the environment in which events take place around us. Being a moment, this aspect is part of ourself, and this should be acquired and manifested on a continuous basis. So the important point over here is that intellect is given to us to know, to gain knowledge. And if we have knowledge, then Tawilul Ahadith issue will come in, that is how to interpret it. If we don't have knowledge, then the question of interpreting any events does not even arise. In this surah, Yusuf's ability to interpret events is referred to, and this is not specific just to him. The Quran notes this feature in all the messengers of Allah and wants all members of Jamaat-e-Mu'mineen to acquire it by becoming Aleem, Hakeem, Saleh, Mohsen, Aziz, and all those attributes which are noted in the Quran. Advice from another father to his son. So I thought over here I should share a similar advice. Over here, Yaqub is giving advice to Yusuf, and the Quran has also noted that Luqman gave advice to his son as well. And let us look at it, what he says. وَإِذْ قَالَ لُقْمَانُ لِأَبْنِهِ وَهُوَ يَعِظُهُ يَا بُنَيَّ لَا تُشْرِكْ بِاللَّهِ إِنَّ الشِّرْكَ لَظُلْمٌ عَظِيمٌ. Behold, Luqman said to his son by way of instruction, O my son, do not commit shirk with Allah, for shirk is the highest injustice, that is, it is zulm. Because if you associate, if you mix up Allah's wahi with something else, then you will not benefit from it and you will do a lot of bad deeds in the world. Ya bunayya innaha in taku mithqala habbatin min khardalin fatakum fi sakhratin aw fi samawati aw fil ardi yati biha Allahu innallaha latifun khabir. O my son, if there be the weight of a mustard seed and it were hidden in a rock or in the heavens or on earth, Allah will bring it forth. For Allah understands the finest aspects, is well acquainted. And so over here, he is explaining the law of requital explained to him. So I assume that Yaqub must have told Yusuf as well about the law of requital. And of course, there was a good example of the functioning of the law of requital within the family, where brothers were working against the interests of the family as well as against their father's aim. Ya bunayya aqimis salata wa'mur bil ma'ruf wanha anil munkar wasbir ala ma asabaka inna zalika min azmil amur. O my son, establish salat, enjoin what is just and forbid what is evil, and persevere with patience and determination whatever you are faced with, for this is steadfastness in the resolution of affairs of human life. And so verse this 31:17 sums up the conduct and character of Yusuf as well, because min azmil umur, these things require a lot of determination and perseverance, because once you have acquired iman and we are doing amale saleh, we have selected a different course of life, a different path of life. So we have to stick to it then to get to the end. Now over here, what I've done is from verses 5 to 6, the state of the family of Yaqub. I have looked at it. Of course, the whole of Surah is in front of me, having been through it numerous times. So I thought just to put it down that what is the state in which Yusuf is living, and in that state he's dreaming about his future. The dream of Yusuf points to the state of his consciousness and subconsciousness, where he is rejecting the condition of the family, that is the division and conflict within the family, and the world around him. He obtains details of an alternative world based on Allah's wahi, because he is thinking within the wahi, those instructions given by his father. He thinks and reflects continuously and comes to this conclusion that he has to get out of this environment and go somewhere else. And of course, Egypt was the center of civilization at that point, where he can gain more knowledge in order to benefit from wahi. Despite his father cautioning him against his brothers, he remains fearless, as will become clear later on. Very important. La tahzan inna Allah ma'ana. So he's developing that conviction by virtue of his iman, and I'm sure he must be doing a lot of good as well. The father and two of his sons know the guidance of wahi and try to follow it within the constraints imposed by the majority, that is other sons. Other sons are not interested, as is clear from the term used, shaitan. Hizbullah clearly becomes defined here. So it's very important. Now within the family there are two parties. One is electing to follow the path of shaitan. The other one have become Hizbullah, and Yusuf is very much part of it. The father, being fully aware of the guidance of wahi, strongly desires his son Yusuf to succeed in changing the state in which they are all living. It's a very unhappy situation. Just imagine that within a family now there are two parties. However, after becoming aware of the state of self-development and outlook of Yusuf and his potentials, he gets the hope that Allah as Rabb will provide him with help to guide him towards Rububiyyat. So what Yusuf is wishing, the same his father is wishing as well. Yaqub is wishing the same. So now within that situation, both are now come very closer to each other, and they must be discussing it all the time. However, no additional wahi is provided except what he already knew from the past. For example, Nuh, Ibrahim, Ishaq, he has firm iman in it that is unseen, but does not know how this will materialize. So Yaqub knows from the abilities and potentials and the iman and amal saleh of Yusuf that he is going to become Aziz, and he is going to be placed at some elevated position and position of eminence, but he doesn't know how this is going to materialize. And that is an interesting point which we should keep it in mind, that once whole scenario unfolds later on. Despite this state of understanding, he cautions Yusuf to be aware of his brothers and of their ill feelings towards him. Yusuf was close to his father because of commonality of iman. One can imagine the state of loneliness of Yaqub in that family environment. So you can imagine that how much distress Yaqub must be under because of his other sons not listening to him and to Allah's wahi. And they were, of course, in a position of power as well. So this is the kind of scenario which is existing in that family. And that scenario, then Yusuf is deciding to take a different path in life. Now, I'll continue on this state of family, some more points. Yusuf is fully determined after this lucid dream interpreted in the light of wahi. His heart and mind have acquired iman. He has an intense desire to help wider humanity and is not prepared to accept the status quo of the man-made system. So he is totally now detached from that. He is not happy with the state of affairs within his family, and he says, I have potentials and I want to do something better than just getting lost in these affairs in this family, because over here I will not be able to bring out my best. This aspect will be discussed in more detail when we discuss his life in Egypt. Yaqub provided education, training, application, that is Tawilul Ahadith, to Yusuf on a continuous basis. Just imagine that if a son is living over there, there is a group which is very powerful. Of course, they are busy as well. They used to go out and do cattle, sheep rearing and shepherding work. or they may have some land as well. This is why he remained to his father, and he is very close to his father because of commonality of belief, which resulted in enmity from his brothers who were not interested in the guidance of Wahi. And these situations do exist within our families around as well, and friends, and of course in the wider world. They were following their unbridled desires and intellect. There's nothing to put them down. The question over here is not putting down the brothers or the family. The question over here is that this is what Iman does. When we follow Iman, when we acquire Iman and do solid deeds and come to the path of Allah, then of course there is going to be a division between us and others. Despite his efforts, Yaqub could not regulate the family affairs, and this becomes very evident as we will go through this whole story, and expressed his displeasure regarding the state of affairs and served as a warner under the law of requital. More on this in later verses. Yaqub could not foresee that despite a strong wish for Yusuf to achieve a higher status as a Mu'min and Muhsin, that this will take place through the hands of his own sons. He might have feared, but he never thought that this is how the whole account will develop later on. However, Yusuf appears to have figured it out, but Yusuf must have thought through it and said that what are the ways to get out of this family where I cannot utilize my potentials, and what is the best course of action? And I'm sure he must be figuring out various options before him. Yusuf was clear that his potentials will only be realized when he gets exposure to the palaces of power which were in Egypt at that time. Now, this comment is put down by looking backwards, and we can think through it ourselves as well. The other sons had no Iman and never thought seriously about the law of requital. This becomes very clear throughout this account that they had no idea about mukafat. They were just following their desires, and people who follow their desires, they don't think of the consequences. They just think that they are powerful, so they can do whatever they like. Their aim in life was to consolidate their power within the family and wield it over their father and two brothers. So it is a very, very difficult situation for the father and the other brother of Yusuf, the real brother. Thus, two parties, as per the Quran, became well defined. This instructs us to guide our children to become like Yusuf. So over here, I made a comment that we also have families, and we are very much interested in the Quran. And while we are trying to acquire that character, or even if we have acquired a very high level of eminence and loftiness of character within the values of the Quran, we should ask our children and draw their intention that they can become Yusuf. And this does not mean just son, it could be a daughter as well. Because in today's world, daughters have more or less a quite powerful role to play in the world. To bring about a change in this world, make an offer to them and then explain it to them. Because if they are at a younger age like Yusuf, if they do that, then within their lifespan, things will start changing. I'll just give you an example. If there are, let's say, 50 of them, then they will be established in 50 parts of the world, because that is how the Quran is developing this story for us. The recipe is available. Anyone can take up the challenge. Immense rewards are awaiting them in this life, and the rewards of the hereafter are part of this deal in our life. And on this, we will discuss more as we go through this account in the later verses. Now, the issue of providing answers to our questions about human existence. لَقَدْ كَانَ فِي يُوسُفَ وَإِخْوَاتِهِ آيَاتٌ لِلسَّائِلِينَ. Before moving forward, this reality should be fully comprehended, that the aim from this story is not to describe the mutual conflict between Yusuf and his brothers. So that is not the aim of the Quran. The Quran is trying to bring out the method and the process of acquiring power in Allah's land to do good and to become Aziz, Hakeem, Aleem, and all those attributes which Allah has noted down in the Quran. In this, there are clear signs of admonition and wisdom for every one of those individuals who considers himself in need of these signs. So desire has to be there. First and foremost, Rasulullah and the Jamaat-e-Mu'mineen should come to know that in the mission which they have stood up to take on, they will initially face all kinds of hardships from their own kith and kin. But ultimately, the success will be theirs alone. So this is the point we should make clear to our youth, our children as well, and to others, that this is achievable. It is not something which is not achievable. Otherwise, there is no point in narrating this story and preserving it for all times till the day of judgment in the Quran. Now over here I've quoted another verse in relation to Lisailin. Ya ayyuhallazina amanu la tas'alu an ashya'a in tubdalakum tasukum wa in tasalu anha hina yunazzalul Quranu tubdalakum afallahu anha wallahu ghafurun halim. O mu'mineen, ask not questions about things which, if made plain to you, may cause difficulties. So this verse was revealed at the time when the Quran was being revealed, that don't ask those questions which are not required to be asked, which if made clear, then it will make your life very difficult. So over here, Quran is saying that whatever was required to be revealed, it has been revealed, and you should ask questions within what is revealed to you, because that is where all answers lie. Whatever questions arise in your head, in your mind, as you live your life, those will be answered by the Quran if we are looking for the answers. But if you ask about things when the Quran is being revealed, these will be made plain to you. Very important point made over here, that it is not that Allah is not listening. Allah is listening, and you are trying to look at the life from your point of view, from a very narrow perspective, where Quran's perspective, Allah's perspective, is whole of mankind for all times. And Allah does not wish to curtail your choices, to restrict your choices. He wants to give you enough freedom so that you can enjoy this life as well, and not become totally confined like the religious rituals, where life is totally imprisoned. The minds are imprisoned as well. Allah has kept protection in this, for Allah is all protecting, that is, He is Ghafur, and His system has tolerance and respite built into it, that is, He is Halim. So what is given in the Quran, if we stay within that, it gives us maximum freedom, far more freedom than what the system created by human intellect gives us. If we do not ask questions from the Quran, we will find no answers. So point over here is that what is noted over here is ayatul lisailin, that there are questions which need answering within this account of Yusuf. And we will see as we progress through it. It is that simple. The intellect will remain in its status quo. If we don't ask questions, for example, today's presentation will be before us. Once we go to question answer session, we should discuss it threadbare. We should go through it, strip it apart, and see what is in it for us. Over here, I put down some points which I thought, which came to my mind, and these need further reflection. At this early stage of the dynamics of a developing story, the Quran invites us to have some questions ready to be answered. No questions, then there will be no answers. It will just be a story of Yusuf and his brothers, nothing for us. And we have already seen that there is a lot more in it for us than just going through this story that Yusuf had some bad brothers and this is what happened. Egypt at that time had a very highly developed civilization with advanced institutions of the state. However, its jurisdiction did not extend to the tribal areas, primarily due to lack of interest by the elite, just as in many third world countries today. So in today's world, we can see that the center of education and power is in the West. And we have to acquire knowledge of our world as much as possible, to that extent where we should know exactly the way this world is working and functioning. So that is the point I'm trying to make. There were limited opportunities in Canaan, that is Palestine. It was a tribal area, and there was a family feud going on at a very, very low level. It was all ignorance, and in which Yaqub was in a very difficult position, that is father of Yusuf. It was rural and remote, isolated, with high illiteracy and agriculture economy and low level of trade. So you can see that what sort of a life must be. Just get up in the morning, take out the sheep, do some agriculture, come back home, eat your meals and go to sleep. And Yusuf was not happy with that kind of a life. He wanted to move on. He wanted to do something about humanity. And that is the point I'm trying to make. Slavery existed in the land at that time, as is noted later in the account. So there was a slavery, physical slavery, as well as mental slavery. Yusuf did not seem to question his brothers, as will emerge later. He accepted the fait accompli. It's very interesting that Quran does not note any comment by Yusuf. He willingly goes along, brothers, and he willingly gets into that well. He never offers any resistance, because he's seeing an opportunity developing for him, and he's got strong iman that Allah will guide him to that purpose which he has in mind after acquiring Iman and doing Saleh deeds. And that is our position as well, and that is what we need to explain to our children. If the brothers had not interfered and despite holding a grudge had not gone to this extent, what would have been the modus operandi of Yusuf going to Egypt? That is a question which we should look into within ourselves, that what would have been a different position? Would that have been the end of it? No. Yusuf was very desperate to get out of that and do something. Why did Yaqub not send Yusuf away to Egypt using his own resources for education and gaining experience? Now, the answer to this is very obvious. Brothers wouldn't have let him do it because they were controlling the purse of the family. Was he reluctant to part with his company, or was he waiting for Yusuf to become a bit older? That could also be a possible answer, that he might have waited that he should grow up and become a bit stronger, and then he might send him away somewhere where he can get more opportunities. What role did the women folk in the family play in this? It is not clear from the Quran, but it looks as if they were silent spectators. And of course, women folk at that time had a pretty harsh time. Were they allowed to participate in any mutual consultation in the family setup? And this is something for us to consider in our environment, that if we want our children to become Yusuf, then both husband and wife, both parents should get involved. Yaqub's elder sons appear to control the economy of the family. More questions will arise as we move through the account in later verses. So this sets the scene. We can always add more from these 7 verses, but the idea is that there is far more in this story than what it apparently looks like. And that is what Quran is asking us to use akal, to increase its own area of expanse and its own domain of consciousness. Values in this surah, some itemized at the outset. Never accept the state of a non-Quranic system, reject it completely at the cognitive level. Think continuously to counter it and look for alternatives. Opportunities only arise if we look for them. Otherwise, opportunities will come and disappear. Individual self-development holds the key to obtaining Allah's help and becoming Aziz. Jamaat-e-Momineen needs members with the character and attributes of Yusuf and other messengers. So the point over here is that if we are thinking of going in the direction of establishing the system of Deen, then each one of us must become Yusuf. And it's not difficult. His whole character is explained in this surah, as we will see later on. The law of requital works and always produces its results if efforts are made using the value system of the Quran. Next is never give up, even if no possibility exists of the establishment of the system of Deen. Yusuf never for a moment thought that what he is aiming at is not achievable. See, a young man from a divided family where there are so many problems, and his thoughts are heavenly. His thoughts are right to the core of the human problem, that this system has to be established. The same applies to all the other messengers, except in the case of Yunus, where he later returns to his people. There is only one example of Hazrat Yunus where he then comes back to his own people. He leaves a bit earlier before the instruction was given to him. Chastity is a permanent value, and when the Quran states to keep your gaze and thoughts under control, it is pointing to the fact that this leads to becoming Aleem, Hakeem, and Aziz. We had a presentation on this talk given by Dr. Hamid Mia as well, and he explained it in detail, that how this aspect impinges on human character, not only individually, but collectively as well. And this point will come under discussion once we go to later verses. Surah Yusuf is still applicable. Exactly same human beings under same Allah, same Wahi. We need to remain focused. Now, what I've done over here is I've drawn a schematic because I thought this illustration will be helpful. This is a very simple illustration. The first arrow indicates our development, technological development in terms of the way we are living. And Yusuf, his birth is somewhere between 7th and 5th century BC. And then technology has advanced, and now we are in 21st century. At that time, they had these camels, and they used to travel. All caravans used to be on camels, and they had tents and mud houses. And now, of course, we have extremely modern way of living. But at a basic level, basic human being remains the same. Hence, all permanent values remain applicable and are valid. So human being hasn't changed. It doesn't matter that how much technology has come around us, and we can verify it through our observation, and it is evidence-based. Now, over there were tents, and this is the area in which the whole model of Yusuf emerged and went through its normal course, and he got established in this land. And the same planet is there. We are living on that. Yusuf lived on this planet. Subsequent messengers also lived on this planet. And after we are gone, others will also follow us. But issue over here is that what are we going to do about our life? That is the point here. And Quran is offering this story something to think about. And these are the cities we have, modern cities, but same human beings, same problems, same family issues. The issues in Yusuf's family are typical, and these are the issues of every family in the world, where there are divisions, wherever there are no permanent values. Guidance for the youth. Choice and intent makes us human, and the law of requital functions in our life. We need to know this and get benefit from its functioning in our life using the Quranic value system. Our youth, our children should be fully aware of their ability to make choices and intent, and we should point out to them. We have covered this aspect previously as well, but I thought to re-emphasize it. Human death is a fact of life. Those who are born today are going to become old and then die. We need to make a choice whether to live our life based on the fact that our life at the self's level continues beyond our death or not. So this is our choice. Death is a fact of life. There is no doubt about that. The issue is that, do we want to live a better life or not? Or just we want to live a life just like the majority around us? Death is our deadline as far as this physical life is concerned, and its being universal means that our creation has a purpose. The Quran makes us understand the reality of human life as continuously flowing stream, which continues its journey into the life of the hereafter unabated. Next is, Quran is not against human desires, intellect, and emotions. We should keep this in mind, that Quran is not against our desires. Allah has given us these desires. He has given us this intellect and emotions. Why should He be against it? Only thing is, He wants us to get best out of this life. That is the point over here. It provides guidance to get the best out of it, and in the process get Allah's help to live a better life and to create better world. There is no point in living in this world when the world around us is not a better world. It's full of misery and poverty and fear and huzn. Without the Quran, we cannot think of a world outside the one created by the human intellect. And even if we can think of one, we can never create one without the help of Allah. So this is the point to our youth, and we should keep it in mind. We already know it, but our youth need to understand it. It helps to enhance the field of vision of the intellect far beyond its default level. The guidance of Wahi is a need of the human intellect. However, this desire to fulfill this need should come from man himself. The model of Yusuf provides evidence that if we acquire Iman and do solid deeds, then this ultimately leads to a better life in the world and helps to create a system of deen by joining others. The determination which we need to create within us is, if Yusuf could do it, so can we. The path of the Quran is well signposted with no ambiguity, and the life of a developed self is a better life with certainty of the hereafter built within it. It provides all the answers to all the questions related to the meaning of our life and the purpose of human creation and the universe around us. This life is not meant to be full of fear and grief and to be complicated. If we really look at Yusuf's life and the way he goes through the whole challenges, you will see that it is all achievable. It's not that other human beings cannot do it. And it's not necessary that someone else will face the same challenges. But there are essential ingredients in that which help us to develop ourselves to reach that level where it can become aziz and becomes eligible for help from Allah. It is meant to be free from fear and grief for all human beings. Do think about the poor and the weak in the world, as this brings a higher understanding of the Quran. See how much Yusuf is concerned about the welfare of other human beings. That will become once he is established in the land. And that aspect will come before us. Keep reminding ourselves that all human beings are equal, and in the human world, it is human beings who create yatim and miskin. What is given in the Quran is achievable. And if we start earlier in life, then there is a better chance of creating a better world, just like Yusuf in the later part of our life. Allah helps those who help themselves. The Quran is a book of guidance. Now, what I've done over here is I thought that because this is Surah gives a complete model of one human being, and I thought just to go through some aspects of the Quran as a book of guidance. Just to reiterate what we know about the Quran so far, there is no inbuilt guidance at the cognitive level within man due to the possession of choice and intent. The Quran has summed this up by stating there is no compulsion in deen, and deen covers the whole of man's life in the world and the hereafter. The book is for those who are looking for guidance in life, and since we claim to have come to the Quran, hence we need to inform others just in case they are also interested in its guidance or become interested at a later stage in their life. These points should be made clear to our children and people around us that there is a solution which is within our reach. We all know how human emotions, desires, and intellect work without the guidance of the Quran. Hence, we can easily figure out that what is in the Quran cannot be the product of the human intellect. To test it, we can look at its values and then compare these with the word created by the human intellect around us. It's very easy. Compare the two. While we're going through the Quran, see to what higher level of eminence the Quran is asking us to achieve in this life with the help of the permanent values and by manifesting those divine attributes. There is a marked difference between the two. Then if we opt to follow the path defined by its light, we are unable to see those darknesses of human behavior and its displays which may not be clearly discernible prior to acquiring Iman. The Quran, despite being a guidance for those who choose to become muttaqeen, provides details of the world created by non-Quranic thinking. So Quran does point to us that how the non-Quranic thinking works. It serves as an aid for our intellect and desires, just like a telescope and a microscope, which help us to see things we cannot see with the naked eye. Next is, there will always be human beings who will question the purpose of life and will question the man-created chaos and conflicts and will be looking for the true meaning of life. In this process, they will try to figure out using the knowledge accumulated by human beings up to that point in time. As Allah knows the secrets of human hearts and mind, hence as per the Quran, He will guide them to His wahi in the event that He finds that this is what they are looking for. Because we are dealing with someone who knows the secrets of the hearts. So providing guidance is not our responsibility, but pointing towards the Quran's guidance is our responsibility, because that is how our self develops. This means we can draw the attention of fellow beings towards a better option in life, but the choice remains a personal one for each of us whether to accept this offer of Allah or not. At a fundamental level, the purpose of human creation is to create a new Quranic self through Iman and Salih deeds and by becoming fully cognizant of the functioning of the law of requital. The universe around us is created for man as he is provided choice and intent, which is based on divine energy, which gives him a sense of self-awareness. For a being with such high potentials, there will always be the need for external guidance if he is to achieve the purpose of the creation. The Creator needs to do this, and the Quran fully meets this criterion. We, by virtue of possessing a self, can relate to this if we use our rational thinking. Rather than be fearful of the Quran or to hesitate to approach it, we need to overcome our inner reluctance, which is kept inside, so that we overcome this and come to its guidance using our rational thinking. The Quran helps our intellect to understand its own significance and then invites it, i.e. the intellect, to use intellect to enhance intellect. This is very interesting, which I put it down here after thinking through very carefully. The intellect, to use intellect to enhance intellect. And this is the beauty of it, that our consciousness is aware of its own consciousness. And when it expands, it is also aware of that expansion. This is why the Quran repeatedly invites us to see the possibility of a new world and new possibilities opening up before us. The book is presented as a spoken word of Allah and is presented in such a way that we need to cross-reference in it frequently and also relate its values and models to the issues of our own time. Since it deals with human life and its cognitive issues at a fundamental level, hence it has no expiry date on its permanent values. For example, when it declares to do justice, even if it goes against your own self, this value never changes, but always stays the same for the first man on the earth and the last human being. These are some points of interest in relation to the Quran. More will be added as we continue our journey through the Quranic learning. And with that, we come to the end of this presentation. Thanks for your time and for sharing this